We have, yes.
All right. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can we take a roll?
Chair Moore,
Here.
Alder Thomas,
Here.
Ms. Fallett,
Here.
Mr. Stein,
Here.
Ms. Fox,
Here.
Mr. Holmquist,
Here.
Mr. Peterson,
Here.
Mr. Holmberg is excused.
Great. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from January 27th?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, any additions, corrections, changes? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Minutes are approved. There are no appearances that I'm aware of, unless anyone of the guests would like to make an appearance. I believe that there's no appearances that I'm aware of. No unfinished business. Let's move to new business. 6A, a public hearing on the request by IGO Legacy Hotel Group, Country Inn and Suites, represented by Keller Inc., for the approval of a zoning permit for a Newport Kirsch and updated main entrance exterior finishes at 400 River Place, case number 2003-2020. Would the individual representing the Legacy Hotel Group like to speak to the group about the proposal?
Hello, my name is Jesse Hall. I'm the project manager with Keller. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. We have been working with Legacy for a number of years now, doing this exact thing where we refresh all their country inn and suites. We are doing currently one in Green Bay. We just completed one in Appleton, and they purchased this hotel last fall. We did a tour, and we originally had intentions of starting this project already, but this fun times we're in right now has delayed the shipment of the goods that are coming overseas for us to install. So now we're seeking for you guys to approve the brand standard exterior renovation of the property that was kind of guided to us by Country Inn and Radisson hotels.
Great. Is there anything that you would like to say about this treatment, potentially certainly in relation to the last time this main entrance addition was presented to this group?
I will say I did see the last submittal, and I think that we are taking it a step further in the quality of the work being done and the extensiveness of the renovation from what previously was proposed. We're replacing the windows, everything outside is getting a refresh and replaced on the exterior of the hotel.
Okay.
Including the lighting, seal coating the parking lot. We're not changing the landscaping, but we're fixing, because we're going to damage it, and we're fixing it. There's a couple dead trees we're going to take out and replace. The IGO really invests in their properties and keeps it for the long haul, and they see the value in having a quality hotel bringing to their customers.
Okay. Great, thank you. So I'd like to close the public hearing portion, and then I'm going to go to 6B, consideration of action on the request of IGO Legacy Hotel Group, Country Inn and Suites, represented by Keller Inc., for approval of a zoning permit, the Newport and updated main entrance and exterior finishes at 400 River Place, case number 2003-2020. Doug, would you like to start us off?
Thanks. So the staff report that I gave had a bit of an overview of the previous application from 2018, both the process that it went through as well as what was ultimately approved at that point. That has obviously since lapsed, and that's brought the applicant back to us with the plans and the work that's proposed today. So I sort of ran through those in the discussion part of the staff report, as well as including the brand guidelines for the new edition, which, you know, a part of the packet as well, and specifically mention the flat roof as being the only option now for this type of treatment, and not having the pitched roof, as had been a recommendation of the commission previously in 2018. And so ultimately, with that, staff's recommendation was for approval with two conditions, but certainly open it up to discussion of the commission.
Great, thank you. Brian, would you like to start? Do you have any questions?
Sure, Doug, I would agree with what you had written down in the staff report section. I think previously when we were looking at the revision, it was really kind of looking at kind of sprucing up that front piece and then really trying to tie it into the building itself, where I think given this is a total rehab of the whole exterior of the building, I think the design proposed is well within line and fits really well with. I have no questions for the applicant.
Okay, great, thank you. Alder Thomas?
I think the project looks good and I am fine with what they are proposing. I have no questions.
Okay. Corinne? Do you have any questions?
No questions. I think it looks great.
Okay, terrific. Josh?
You say Josh?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, agreed. Proposal looks great. It's a nice update.
Okay,
No comments, no concerns.
great. Rob?
I have nothing to add. I think it
Nothing to add. Okay, great. And Susan?
I would agree. I think it looks great. It is a nice update. And I think our concern about the flat porte-clés before was because they were leaving that gable entryway and they've removed that now. So yeah, I think it looks very good and very much updated. So
Okay,
an improvement.
okay, great. Seeing no further questions, do I have a motion on this consideration of action?
I'll make a motion to approve the zoning permit with the conditions as laid out by staff.
Great, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We look forward to seeing the updates. Jesse?
I appreciate it, and with good luck, we'll be able to get on them very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So let's move on to the pre-hearing conference on request by Eric Gradash for the consideration of a zoning permit for a massage therapy establishment at 4405 Monona Drive, case number 2004-2020. So this is a just as a point of information, this is a little bit of a different thing for us, which I requested come in front of the council for two reasons, which are more or less reflected in Aaron's remarks. One is that our zoning ordinance very clearly states that if a property is non-conforming to its zoning, that once it goes to conforming, which is to say, in this case, it's non-conforming as a residence, and to go to conforming would be to take it to be a residential business. And so once it goes in that direction, that it can't return, and the applicant has very specifically requested that she be allowed to effectively bring it back to the non-conforming status, because obviously when she goes to sell the property, if she purchases it and proceeds with her plans, then she would be a residential business and would like to exercise her right, is the owner of the property to sell it as in its original non-conforming state. So that was number one. And number two, our residents also, our ordinance, I should say, also reflects our review of this from the standpoint of not having a glut, if you will, of a particular type of establishment on Monona Drive. So that's why it's been brought before us tonight prior to purchase, which I recognize is a kind of an odd case, but I think nonetheless important to Aaron as the potential buyer. So I appreciate hearing. Aaron, would you like to talk about this potential purchase?
Yeah, basically, I've just been in business for myself for a while, and I really would love to move out of my 200 square foot office. This would allow me to be more of a spa, no hair, no nails. And it's close to my home, so I could walk here, bike here. It's just kind of like the perfect little thing. And like you said, it's really difficult for me to find something that we can afford because I don't need a lot of space, like a lot of, a huge commercially zoned property. And we won't be living on the property. So I guess it's just really to take that risk that I need to take, but to go into it with somewhat of a safer risk, I guess you could say.
Okay, great. I'll again use the headshots as they're presented to me to enable people to ask any questions or make any comments related to this pre-hearing conference. Brian?
Yeah, as it kind of reflects back to the zoning issue, I think that was spelled out in some of the staff report regarding the issue of we can't necessarily tie ourselves to what a future commission or council will approve or not approve. So I think the applicant just needs to kind of be aware that we don't really have the authority to do that. And if you look back at any of our documents in the city, it really spells out what it is we're looking for as a long-term kind of aspect up there by the high school. We haven't made any movement on any of that, and there hasn't been any, developers pounding down the door to do something up on that end of the drive in recent time. So I don't anticipate that there would be any changes upcoming soon. So the issue around the zoning, I think it really is up to the applicant to decide, if they converted it and became conforming, what would the market look like if you had to sell it in that conforming status, to take your risk that way. The other pieces that I think you have laid out here, I'm not necessarily too concerned about. I think they're all things that we could discuss if
Awesome. I just wanted to say about the, zoning back. After learning about this meeting here, my husband and I have been talking about it a lot, and that's probably not the biggest concern now is going back to a residential zone. Just the first initial into the deal, is a little nerve-wracking in that sense. So.
Right.
Understood.
Kathy? You have anything?
Now, I'm with Brian. It's very hard for us to tie the hands of what they will do in the future.
Right.
And if it is a reasonable request in the future, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't grant it, but we cannot make that decision. I mean, that's a decision I don't think we can make, although it would be interesting to see what the attorney had to say about that.
Attorney Cole?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since this is a pre-hearing,
Right.
I think you can ask them and find out whether or not we can do it and what conditions we might attach to it.
And I can,
Those would be my comments.
Right.
if I can jump in, I did run this by Attorney Cole just to get his input, and he really said that portion of the discussion wasn't really in the wheelhouse of the Plan Commission right now. I think as has already been mentioned, that ultimately a rezoning request would come through Plan Commission for recommendation before council. But as has been said, the body, the time when it comes through, it's hard to sort of presume an outcome for that. So I think, I think there were two sort of components of this. Really, the first was the zoning permit for the potential business, which I think the applicant has mentioned to sort of take away some of that risk of purchasing. And then the second component would be more of an unknown. I think as has already been said, that there's a chance, that once it is made to conform, changing it back, rezoning, there's always that risk that comes with that. Potentially surrounding uses may have changed by that point, but I think hopefully, tonight we could give the applicants some guidance more on the zoning permit specifically, and kind of the likelihood of that formally coming through probably in the next month or so, and how that would be received by this body.
Great, Doug, thank you. Corinne? You have anything to add?
Nope,
Oh, Kathy, do you have something else to say?
nope.
Okay. Corinne, do you have anything to add?
No, just, I guess my question was similar, that this is identified as part of a potential redevelopment area in our comprehensive plan. So, that is a place where if there would be some opportunity or some developer interest in that area, that is in the plan. So I think, what was just stated here is that there's uncertainty from that perspective about what the surrounding uses might end up being in the future. But
Do you guys mean like a developer to come in with a whole block? Is that what you're kind of saying? And demolish the whole block and build bigger buildings?
there's just areas in our plan that are identified as redevelopment areas. There's no specific
Okay.
idea about how that would happen.
Right.
This is my first time, so it's really good. I'm glad we're doing this. I can learn.
Right. And by the way, I misspoke when I said residential business, were obviously when I meant retail business. So again, it's I'm chalking up to my fog. Josh, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm not as familiar with the redevelopment plan. I'm just kind of curious, the adjacent property to the north, 4403, is that also a non-conforming use today? It appears to be residential.
I believe that's also residential, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
I think the only thing that the applicant may want to consider as she's continuing to evaluate this property is if you do transition the property to a business, there's likely improvements that come along with that outside of the scope that you've identified in the narrative that you provided to the commission. And that aligns to ADA requirements. So it's all around providing an accessible space for folks that may have some disabilities. Just something to consider.
Good tip. Yep.
Right.
I absolutely want to make it beautiful. I really want to make it beautiful. So that would all flow.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, I don't need to restate a lot of the things that were said about the zoning. It just seems that the goals of the zoning map that were kind of set forth, this property wants to be retail commercial. So I would imagine it would be difficult to rezone that, but I don't know. That said, as far as the use for the site, I don't have any issues with that. If you're going to move forward with that, outlining kind of in a little more detail how the site would function would be useful.
Okay, yeah. And for the record, let's just cross off my third point. Let's just cross off the third point because I don't want to have to, I want it to be there for the long haul. If that's what the city would want to have.
That's what we want too.
And I just get to be a little, have to look at both good and bad and what happens if, oh boy, I can't work, just the what ifs, but no, certainly let's cross the third point off. I'm cool with that because, we've been thinking and thinking that that's not where I want to go. I want it to be a beautiful little day spa sort of deal thing.
Okay. So you're saying you want to cross off the notion of going back to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do that. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep. So I guess the biggest thing for me would be just, before even doing the whole purchasing is just the feasibility of what it would be to be able for me to get my permit so I could work right away. So I could, just work seamlessly. Most of my clients book out the year, so I'm actually, with the situation going right now, it's a little affected, but mostly I'm, I want it to be seamless. So let's just say that. And then we'll cross off the third point, and oh yes, and then the updates that would need to be done, I would love to figure out whatever that list would be, so I could definitely, I already want to make it beautiful. It's just the budget, but if I could get the siding and the roof, like I want a new driveway, but I have to slow down.
There's if you get to that point, there has in the past been a facade improvement grant. I don't know if it'd be eligible, but that's something
Awesome.
by the city in the past.
Right. I don't believe there's any funds in that pot right now, but Rob's point is a good one, which is to say we have a facade program for people to be able to beautify their properties, which sometimes funding is available that we're able to procure through other means, and it's something to look into. And you'll find information for it on the website.
And I'd love to be environmentally all the way if I can. That's my goal.
Right. Great.
Awesome.
Susan, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think, the other things to think about would be signage and lighting. I mean, just to be thinking about that kind of thing, because that'll come along with that, with making it a business site.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no, I think it seems like a reasonable use and fits all those structures. The only question I had when you were speaking, I'm not sure I heard whether you said you do not plan to live in the property or you don't. Okay, that's what I assumed, but then I wasn't sure I heard you right correctly when you said it. Okay.
Oh, I live 1.4 miles from
purely-
the property.
Okay, purely business. Okay, thanks.
Yep, purely business. Yep.
So Nancy,
Yes,
can I add something?
you can.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think it's really exciting, given the current environment of what's going on, that someone is talking about opening up a new business, and we are very excited to have you join our community.
I would love to. I can't say that enough.
Great. Okay, unless anybody has any other comments they'd like to share with Erin. Erin, we appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you going back and forth with me on email. Again, we'll expect to see you again, if you will, around issues, if not us as a whole, certainly, although that's anticipated with Doug over signage and other things as your plans progress.
Thank you. Doug's been awesome. Douglas, you've been awesome. Helpful all the way. And as long as this property doesn't sell, that's the whole catch up. So sell for life, let's just say, but that's my only contingency is if it doesn't sell. So thank you all so much for everything, and Douglas to you, and thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. So having finished that conference, I'd like to move to number 7, reports from staff and commission members.
Sorry, should I hang up really quick or do I stay?
Yeah.
I'll hang up.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
So the main update to share with the commission is really the PIP for the final phase of the riverfront. We're expecting that to come through for the second meeting here in April, April 27th. So that's been moving through CDA. And that timing, the second meeting in the month always works well. They can come to Plan Commission on Monday, and then Tuesday they could go to CDA. So I've already put the Class 1 notice in for that. I'm expecting the plans any day now, and I'll share those with you. It would be for the larger development, as was discussed at the pre-hearing, around 140 units. Just remains to be seen exactly what that would be. But that's the main thing coming through. Additionally, there's another zoning permit application for a commercial use down on Industrial Drive. So it's just been vacant for 6 months, greater than 6 months. So it just triggers that review. But it looks like a pretty compatible use.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any other requests that we have for information from Doug? Josh, you're in Seattle.
Yeah. Not really.
Looks a lot nicer there than here. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move adjournment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Great. Thanks all again very much. I appreciate your patience with me getting on. Like I said, I was wiped out. So so thank you all again for your patience and for this meeting. And we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon.
Are
Feel
you
better,
okay?
Nancy.
Hey, get better, Nancy.
Thank you.
Take care, Nancy.
Yeah, I will. Thanks.
Feel better.
Stay safe.
I will. Thanks.
Bye, guys.